think I just did it.
Jamie said...
Says it's starting.
Oh, you're live.
I am.
But all you see is your screen, your text screen, not you.
Okay, so I'm good, Lily?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. This is the first time that I've done a stream, so I was trying to get everything figured out. My name is Davis. I'm one of the AmeriCorps here at the West Valley Outdoor Learning Center. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a topic that I think is really, really cool. So this live is about astrobiology. So let's see here. Astrobiology is what's wrong?
It says the live video is interrupted. Oh, I paused it. Keep going, sorry.
Okay. Again, apologies for technical difficulties. We're still getting this all figured out. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about astrobiology. Astrobiology is something that I think is super cool, and I'm really excited to share with you guys. So,
Okay.
Astrobiology is the study of life in the universe, and not just the life that's found here on Earth. So, I studied biology in college, and I think that biology of all kinds is very cool, including that does not take place on the Earth. So, first and foremost, we're going to be talking about aliens, like all of these up here. Not quite though. When I say the word aliens, you probably think of things like what I have up here, right? Little green men, flying saucers, Yoda, the Vulcan salute, Greys, Alien versus Predator, stuff like that. And while those are interesting depictions of alien life, that is not really what we're concerned with today. Astrobiology is a real field that does not just have importance in fiction. It's actually on the cutting edge of biology and is closely related to the study of life on Earth. So, what is astrobiology? I kind of already touched on this, but astrobiology is the study of the origin, evolution, and distribution of life in the universe. Simply put, this is the study of aliens, like I said, but we're talking more about realistic aliens. So, in addition to this definition, there are three main questions that astrobiology is concerned with, and those are, what is the nature of life? Do we live in a biological universe? And is life a cosmic imperative? So these are really high-level questions, and we're not going to be able to answer them today, but that is what people who do this are thinking about when they're doing their research. So, what we are studying what we are looking for is anything outside of the Earth that may be considered alive. Oh, here's those three questions, my bad. So we're looking for things that may be considered alive. But before we talk about that, we need to talk about what it means for something to be alive. So biologists like myself have come up with five requirements for something to be considered alive. And those are organization, metabolism, homeostasis, growth, and replication. So in order for something to be considered alive, it has to meet each of these qualifications. So I'll start with organization. So organization is there a system in place? So is something organized, basically? So an example of that would be a rock, right? Rocks are minerals, and they often have a crystal lattice type structure. So we would say that they have organization, but they are not alive. Second is metabolism. So metabolism is the ability to use energy. So does something use energy? So something like the Mars rover has organization and metabolism, but it's still not alive. So in the way, or the Mars rover, for instance, has metabolism because it processes energy to do things, right? To use its drill and drive around on the surface of Mars. Next, we have homeostasis. So homeostasis is the energy that the thing is using. Is that used to maintain itself, to keep its internal structure the same, different from the outside, right? So humans, for instance, we have homeostasis because so our energy is expended to maintain the inside of our body, to keep it a certain temperature and to help our cells for them to reproduce and stuff like that. So now growth. So growth is a little different because we're not talking about necessarily changing in size. Growth simply means does the thing change over time? So something like the Earth, we would say, exhibits growth that we talk about in life. So the Earth has tectonic plates, right? And those change and move over time. So we would call that growth. But the Earth is not alive, right? And then finally we have reproduction. And reproduction is the easiest to understand. This is just that doesn't make copies of itself. So an example of that is the Mars rover, for instance, does not make copies of itself, but the ladybugs or the plants do. So there's a lot of things that may fill some of these requirements, or fulfill some of these requirements, but are not necessarily meeting all of them. Another good example is a virus. Viruses have organization, reproduction, and we might say homeostasis, but they don't have a metabolism or a growth without infecting another cell, so they're not technically alive. So, now that we know what life is, we have to decide what we're going to look for, right? So, let's see here. So far, the only life that we have ever found exists on Earth. And all life that has been discovered on this planet is based on the element carbon, way up there. So, let's see here. That is to say that all life that we know of is carbon-based. This means that carbon makes up most of the form that the life, or most of the biomass that the life forms use. This includes its cell, its structure, its cells, proteins, pretty much any other biological chemical we would say is carbon-based in life, or in Earth-based life. On top of this, the study of carbon-based chemistry is called organic chemistry because if it's involving carbon, it's probably involving life, so we say it's organic. Let's see here. So, we're looking for carbon-based life because not only would this mean that it is going to be biologically similar to Earth, it's also the only example of life that we have. So there could easily be life on other planets that is based on copper or polonium or some other random element, but we have no idea what those life forms would look like, and we have no idea what their properties would be or how we would even recognize them if it was alive. The properties of life may not be the same in all parts of the universe. So what are we looking for then? Basically, we are looking for more Earths. We are looking for Earth-like planets. Like I said, Earth is the only planet that we know of that harbors life. So we should be focusing our efforts on looking for planets that are like Earth. Some examples are on this image over here. We have the Earth, and then Kepler-62e and Kepler-62f, which are considered super-Earths, is what they're called. So Earth-like planets are planets that are rocky. They're not gas giants, so they have an actual surface. We don't know if our gas giants have surfaces, and even so, something like Jupiter or Saturn, the pressure down at the surface would probably be way too high for life to exist anyway. And then on top of that, we're looking for three main ingredients when we're looking for these planets. So we're looking for raw materials, and like I said, we are looking mostly for carbon is what we need. Second, we need energy source. So there are planets that exist in our not in our solar system, in our galaxy, excuse me, called rogue planets. And those are planets that are drifting through space by themselves. They do not have a sun. So while it might be possible for life to exist on those planets, we probably wouldn't be able to recognize it because it would, excuse me, it would be too extreme. So it's not quite what so we're looking for something with a sun. And then finally, we're looking for liquid water. All life on Earth requires water to survive. And again, we are looking for Earth-like life. Now, there might be organisms somewhere in the universe that do not require water. Water is super important for life on Earth, and the reason is that water causes things to mix, right? If you use water to mix everything. So water helps the chemicals in our body that form our proteins and our lipids and anything else, and even the volumes of our cells to exist. So we're looking for water. Let's see here. So how does this all work then? Because I've talked about a lot, and it seems like this might all just be theory, but this is actually being practiced. So astrobiology is a multidisciplinary science, is what we call it. And thus it is very multifaceted in its methods. There are many advanced technologies that are employed for this purpose. So I think when I was doing research for this, I think we can describe it in 3 categories. So there is technology that we use to search for life in our own solar system, technology we use to look for life outside of our solar system, and then technology that we use to search for intelligent life. So there's kind of two methods here, I guess. So there's organizations like SETI. Well, let me go back a second. I guess we're trying to decide, what are we looking for? Are we just looking for life in general, or are we looking for intelligence? So, because those are not mutually exclusive, or they're not mutually exclusive, but they are in this sense. So, organizations like SETI, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, use radio telescopes, and I'll go back, radio telescopes like these over here, way at the end, the big radar dish type looking things, to listen for signals from space. So on Earth, we use radio waves to communicate. And we believe that this is probably a common method of communication within the universe. Radio waves travel at the speed of light. So that means it's the fastest current way we know how to communicate. So SETI does a lot of listening. They're just listening to see if they hear from outside. I'm going to come back to that, though. So next we have, let's see here. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the search for life within our solar system. So these are 3 examples of planets that we have studied to look for life in our own solar system. Now, it's not that big of a stretch to guess that there might be life in our solar system. There's life on Earth and all the other planets were formed at the same time from the same matter. So chemically, a lot of the planets in our solar system are very similar. And we already know a couple that have some of the requirements that we talked about earlier. So, like I said, they're all made of the same stuff, so that covers our raw materials. We all share the same sun, so we're good on energy. And many of the bodies in our solar system, I'm going to stop using the word planet, can have water. Maybe not liquid water, but there's still water. So first we have Mars. Mars is probably the most studied because it's similar to Earth in its it's the most similar to Earth in its composition, aside from Venus, but Venus is a nightmare, so we're not going to talk about that right now. So Mars is made mostly of iron. It has a very CO2-rich atmosphere, carbon dioxide, so there's a lot of carbon. And our little rovers that are up there have discovered water. Not to mention, we believe that liquid water used to exist on Mars. There are giant ocean beds, and from satellite images, we can see that there are riverbeds and streams and sediment deposits that only occur when liquid water is present. So Mars might be dead now. Its atmosphere is 100 times less dense than Earth, so let me put it this way. The fastest windstorm on Mars would feel like a breeze here on Earth because the atmosphere just has nothing in it. The winds might be moving super fast, but it won't actually do anything because there's nothing in the atmosphere. So Mars is probably sterile, but it might give us a good example of what else to look for. Next, this little white body is Enceladus. That is one of the moons of Jupiter, I believe. Can't remember if it's Jupiter or Saturn, I apologize. Anyway, Enceladus is an ice moon. So we know that it is water, but we don't know if there's liquid water. Right now, there are plans being made by NASA to send probes to the surface to drill through the ice and see what is below. The main thing that we would be excited about is that there might be liquid oceans underneath the ice. Hold on for a second. So there might be liquid oceans underneath the ice, which could harbor life. If ice is a very good insulator, and we know that some of these ice moons, there are a couple others, are very geologically active, so that means that the oceans are warm. So there might be really cool alien fish living under the surface. And then next we have an interesting one. Way up in the corner there, that yellow ball, is Titan. That is the largest moon of Saturn. It's about as large as the Earth. And it's also the only other body in our solar system that is known to contain liquid on the surface. Now, Titan does not have water on its surface. Titan has lakes of methane. Methane is obviously not water, but methane is a carbon-based liquid. So we might find, and it also has a decent surface temperature. It's not freezing because it has a very thick atmosphere. But if we were to look on Titan, it is possible that we might find either ingredients for life, so proteins, other organic molecules, or maybe carbon-based life that takes kind of a different form than we find on Earth. So, second is the search for planets beyond our solar system. So this is very cool. This is what is being done with, let me go back a few slides. So this is done with several large telescopes that we have orbiting in space. Up here, right above me, is the Hubble Space Telescope. Fun fact, there are actually 3 or 4 Hubble-class space telescopes in space. We only know about the one because the other 3 are owned by governments and are spy satellites and point downwards. Just a fun fact about them. But the Hubble Space Telescope points outwards, and it has a mirror that is about, I think it's 4.5 meters in diameter. And so we use that telescope to, well, I'm going to explain how we use that in a second. And then we also have this one right here next to me. Hold on, right there. This is the, oh my goodness, I can't remember its name. I'm so sorry. This is the new space telescope that is getting launched, James Webb. This is the James Webb Space Telescope. It is being launched in December. I think December 18th is its launch date. It is 3 times the size of the Hubble Space Telescope, and you can see that the mirror is actually exposed in outer space because it's so big. They couldn't build a body to hold it. So how do we use these telescopes to look for other planets, though? Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so right here, this is a little advanced, but this is a spectroscopic data that is pulled from telescopes. And basically what we do is we point the telescopes at a star, and then when a planet passes in front of the star, it shows us different colors. And based on those colors, we can determine what the planet is made of. So like the Earth has a blue atmosphere, right? So if I look up in the sky, it's blue, like this shirt. And that tells us that there is nitrogen in our atmosphere. So the same thing is done with other planets. So this chart over here shows the different wavelengths, basically, of light as they come back to us, as planets pass in front of their home star. So we are looking for planets that, like I said, are based on carbon, iron, pretty much anything that we find here on Earth. So we're looking for gold, carbon, iron, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, stuff like that. So once we determine if it's there, we can use more advanced, we can use the telescopes again to determine what type of planet it is. So based on the fluctuations in the light, so if I hold a light bulb in front of me, right, and then I hold like a pencil in front of it, or a flashlight. If I pointed a flashlight at my face and I moved a pencil in front of it, it dims the light temporarily, right? So based on how dim the light gets, we can tell what kind of planet it is. So from the sun. So if it dims a large amount, we know that it's probably a gas giant. If it's a small amount, then we know that it's a rocky planet. And if it dims really weirdly, like jaggedly, like brighter and then not bright and then bright again, we know that it probably has moons or maybe rings or dust clouds. So now I'm going to come back to looking for civilizations. So the way we do this, I already talked about SETI. I was getting a little ahead of myself. I apologize. The other thing that we do is we are looking for evidence of civilizations, right? So right here, these two images, this one and then the one over on the other side, all the way over there, these are examples of megastructures, is the term that we use. Megastructures are giant space stations, basically, that would be built to, well, for any number of reasons. The two examples I have here are for power. So this is like a ring world. This would be called a Dyson ring, basically. And it's a structure that surrounds the star to harvest energy. And then the one way over there, would be a Dyson cluster, we would call it. And it's the same thing. It's probably for harvesting energy. The ultimate structure that we would be looking for is called a Dyson sphere. This would be a structure that is completely surrounding a star. And there's a reason we call these mega projects. This is not something that humanity could do right now. But the way that we look for these things is the same way we look for planets. We look at the fluctuation in the light from the suns to see what they are doing. And if we see something really weird, like that far image over there, you can probably imagine that would cause a lot of disruption to the light coming from that star. And then we could determine that that's probably evidence of of something that is artificial. So NASA and other space agencies are getting really, really good at identifying planets. Planet hunting is searching for, they're called exoplanets, planets that are outside of our solar system. So we know what exoplanets look like when they pass in front of a sun. What we don't know is what something like this would look like, and it would be very strange. It would appear really weird to our sensors. Something like this was thought to maybe exist a couple of years ago. A sun was discovered, I believe it was around 30 light years from Earth, that had extremely weird fluctuations in its luminosity, its brightness. And this was thought, people immediately jumped on it that this might be evidence of megastructures surrounding the star or alien civilization. Further analysis showed that it was actually just a broken up dust cloud, probably a moon that had collapsed. So unfortunately, that wasn't wasn't quite what we're looking for. But it shows that we still don't understand everything, and that there might be more. So let's see here. And then something I think I forgot to mention is that when we're searching for life in our own solar system, sorry, going the wrong way, we use tools like this one. This is the Viking 1 probe, or way up in the corner, that is the Curiosity rover. So we use little robots, right? We cannot currently go to any planets other than the moon. We probably could if we tried, but there's not enough resources and money in that area right now. So that's how we do this thing. That's how we do this. Now, you're probably wondering, why don't we just use the telescopes to directly observe planets and stars and see if there's evidence of alien life or if the planets have water? The reason is that we can't build telescopes that are big enough to actually observe planets yet. Even the Hubble Space Telescope, which is amazing and has captured amazing images of the cosmos, it was pointed at Pluto back, I believe it was in 2009, and it doesn't have a high enough resolution to even observe Pluto. Pluto is kind of just a brown blob, so we're not there yet. We would need to build telescopes that are massive, like hundreds of meters across, to actually observe planets. So we're not at that point yet, but we have methods that still work. So, sorry, my control is really funky. So, kind of one final thought that I want to talk about is, why would we study something if we don't know anything about it? So, why would we look for life when we don't even know what it might look like? We could be wrong. We might be the only carbon-based life. So, are we just wasting our time? And I don't think that we are. So this question is often asked about this topic. People sometimes say that astrobiology is kind of fringe science, but it's really not. So I don't think that there is any science that is unworthy of study, and astrobiology is included. And that's because there is still a lot that we can learn about ourselves and life on Earth from studying things beyond the Earth. So just by studying outer space, we have learned a lot about how the Earth formed and possibly where life came from. And we have learned about, what makes things alive and all kinds of stuff like that. So if we found life outside of Earth, that would probably be the greatest scientific discovery to date. And it would make our universe a whole lot less lonely than it is right now. So I think that, people have, when I've talked to family members or colleagues about this topic, they have often said, why should we study this? Like, what's the point? And you know what? We didn't know anything about gravity until an apple fell on an astronomer's head 500 years ago. And we didn't know what the surface of the moon was like until we sent people there, and same thing with the bottom of the ocean. So just because we don't have any current knowledge doesn't mean that we shouldn't look for it. Learning about life in space would also allow us to better understand ourselves and how we can survive when we, I think, inevitably leave the Earth. Or expand outwards. There's already plans to build structures on Mars. Moon bases have been considered in the past. And there's all kinds of stuff that you can learn from even something as weird as astrobiology. So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I am sorry about the technical difficulties we had at the beginning. And let's see here. Please follow us on our social media. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. This will be posted to YouTube if you want to watch it again in the future, or if you missed it when it was live. Our Facebook is West Valley Outdoor Learning Center, and our Instagram is at WV Outdoor Learning Center. We post all of our events and we post pictures of our animals and cool articles and stuff like that. Additionally, like I said, we talk about our events. This Saturday, we have an open house here at the Outdoor Learning Center, and we would love it if you could join us. Please look at our Facebook if you want more information. Thank you.